Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. Happy to report I'm chatting again with Jeff Clark, and we're going to be going through a couple stocks within the companies that he follows within his portfolio over at the Gold Advisor, as well as preview what's coming up in the upcoming MIF, May 9th and 10th in Vancouver, some of the companies that Jeff is bringing to that conference. Now, Jeff Clark is the editor of the Gold Advisor, as well as the newsletter Paydirt Prospector. You can follow along with Jeff by clicking the links below this interview and follow him on X at the Gold Advisor. Now, Jeff, it's great having you back on the show. And as I said, we're going to go through a number of companies in your Gold Advisor portfolio, starting with Snowline Gold. It's a company I've had on the show a number of times, and it's really been a standout exploration story, all due to the Rogue project up in the Yukon and the Valley discovery that has consistently yielded some very impressive drill results over the past couple years. I even have a webinar coming up with Snowline tomorrow, actually, Thursday, May 2nd, where we're going to be talking regional opportunities. But Jeff, let's just start off in terms of Snowline Gold. What do you like about this company? Where do you see the upcoming catalyst, please?
Well, Corey, thanks for having me on. It's great to be back on your show. I love it. So thanks for having me. So Snowline has been a longer term recommendation in our portfolio. We recommended it back in 2022. So we're fortunately anyone who bought them sitting on like a 13 bagger or something like that. So it was a little risky at the time. You know, it was a greenfields project, but wow, they made a big discovery there at Valley. So I did see one analyst report try to estimate, okay, how many ounces are at Valley? And this is not official. It's not from the company or management or anything, but that outside analyst estimated they probably have 11 million ounces of gold just at the Valley deposit. We cover Snowline Gold in the free newsletter, so anyone can sign up for free at thegoldadvisor.com and follow it. We just provide newsletter quality analysis on these companies for free, just for the public. Now, they are sponsors, so just as an FYI, be aware of that. But Snowline just announced that they are consolidating the Einerson project. This is another project that's separate from Valley, the Rogue project. And they just consolidated a lot of claims. The last drill result that came on this claim that they're acquiring was 9.6 grams per ton gold over 38 meters. So it was 374 gram meters. That's very good. I mean, do we have another Valley here at Einerson? I mean, that's going to be the question. You know, it's early stage, long way to go, but there was early stage, long way to go at Valley, you know, several years ago. So this is very compelling. So the stock is up a lot. That's been a question for a lot of people. Do I buy it now? Well, it's probably going to go higher. It's going to have some leverage to gold. It's probably going to get bought out at some point. So it's still a buy in our opinion. I still own it. But one thing you got to look at real quick is there's a picture of a couple boulders. It's in their press release, and they're called gold-bearing quartz float boulders. But they're huge. This one picture is huge. You couldn't pick it up. And boy, is it a pretty rock. It's just full of minerals and gold colored and all that. So it's something to check out, and it shows you the kind of potential there. And one of the claims that they stake has never been drilled. So wow, the potential here is still very strong for another Valley.
So, Jeff, what do you want to see in terms of the balance of drilling when the company gets back on the project or the projects this year between continuing to drill out the Valley discovery, but then also testing these regional targets?
Corey, they have 71 million in cash. That's an unheard of amount for a junior company. And now the market cap's probably not a junior anymore, but they don't even have a resource. And they have $71 million in cash. So they have a large war chest to go after multiple projects this year. They'll continue to drill Valley out. They'll probably start in Einerson. They'll probably do some, wildcat holes in other places. They're continuing with metallurgy, which is important to do. even at this stage. So majors can see, oh yeah, we can recover 90% of the gold or whatever. So there's going to be a lot of activity from this company still, the news of which could serve as a catalyst for the stock. So I still like it. There's going to be a lot of work done on the property this year.
Now, what about site access to the Rogue project and just generally that Tombstone gold belt? We all know, I think, of the producer up there of Victoria Gold, but there's a lot more companies that are now exploring up there and building ounces. One of the, I guess, knocks against Snowline is that it's a bit harder to get to site, that Rogue project. What do you have to say to those comments?
That's true. That has been the knock from other analysts is, wow, there's no infrastructure there. That's true. It's mostly helicopter and air fixed plane supported. In fact, I've been to the Valley Project. I've been to Snowline, and I was on one of the first fixed plane landings they made there, and it was just a bulldozer clearing a spot in the field, and it was just nothing but rocks when we landed, so it was a little bumpy. Well, here's the thing. If this had a 500,000 ounces of gold or 1 million ounces of gold, nobody would care because they'd say, "Oh, well, that's not going to get built. There's nobody who's going to buy that. You're not going to spend 100 million on capex to build a 1 million ounce mine." But every indication we have is that, there's probably 9, 10 million ounces there or more, and they've only explored one of their main claim packages. So if it's big enough, they'll come. If you build it, they'll come type of thing. I disagree that infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure up there, is a reason not to own the stock. And the market agrees with that. Again, we're up 13x. I think the original buyers in the private placement are up 15x or more. So the discovery is big enough to warrant building out the infrastructure. There's a road that's not far away. Maybe they could build a road from there over to them. Who knows? But somebody's probably going to come along and buy this out because it's big enough to matter. It's too significant not to be built.
All right. Well, thanks for your insights on Snowline Gold. Then let's also talk about Dolly Varden Silver. It's a company we've had on the show a number of times. This company has been more consolidating land in the southern tip of the Golden Triangle, all now within this Kitsault Valley project. But that does include some of the projects such as the Dolly Varden resource that is there, Homestake Ridge resource, as well as a big bulk property that they just put into the company. Look, Dolly Varden's been doing a great job of consolidating this area. What do you like about Dolly Varden? Where do you see the catalyst coming from?
Yeah, I really like Sean Kun Kun. I'm a Sean Kun Kun fan, but I have an interesting story for you. I owned Dolly Varden, 10, 12 years ago, and it went nowhere. They didn't do much, and so I eventually sold it, I think, for a small loss. So I didn't have a positive impression of Dolly Varden when Sean came along and started doing all the things that he's done with this company to grow it and expand it and drill it. So it's funny. He tells people that I put him through more due diligence than some hedge fund and bank analysts did, because I was just so skeptical coming in. But, the more I learned, the more I liked it. And we have it on our site. It's definitely a recommended stock in our portfolio. What I like about it, Corey, is there's probably, they've got 139, 140 million silver equivalent ounces now already in a resource. And there are analysts out there that think they have perhaps a 500,000 ounces of silver equivalent grade there. So there's a huge potential to grow the resource 2, 3, 4 times over what it is currently. And Sean is, I've spent time with him. He's very aggressive. He's not going to let this company go cheaply. It's probably going to be bought out. We're going to get probably a nice premium for it. But in the meantime, whether that's 1 or 2 years away or whatever it may be, he's aggressively drilling. They just announced they're going to drill 25,000 meters diamond drilling. They're going to have 3 drill rigs up there, and that's just phase 1 for this summer, this year. So they're still going after it. And that Kitsault Valley trend, like you mentioned, is not done, being drilled out by far. There's a lot more to go there. There's a lot of potential that still exists with this company.
So what are you going to be looking for within that drill program this year? As you said, that 25,000 meters, it's split between the Dolly Varden property and the Homestake Ridge property. One third focused on the Homestake Silver deposit area, another one third on the Wolf deposit area, and then that final third on project-wide exploration. So what do you think really moves the stock with the program, the drill program this year?
What I think would move the stock, of course, silver going higher is going to help all these stocks. This is a stock I think is going to have good leverage to silver. But I think two things. One is going to be where drill results clearly show that they're adding ounces to the resource. And I don't mean 5 million ounces, I mean 50 million ounces, that type of thing. When the market realizes that from drill results, that could move the stock. The other thing that could move it would be a discovery outside of where the current resource is. By discovery, I don't mean 100, grams per ton silver. I mean, more like 500 or 1,000 or whatever, but something that clearly shows up as a discovery on top of what they've already got.
All right, well, something to follow along with when it comes to Dolly Varden Silver. I also want to talk about a maybe smaller company from Snowline and Dolly Varden aspect, and that is Aztec Minerals, one that you also follow and in your portfolio. This company moving forward, both the Tombstone property and the Cervantes property. What do you like about Aztec? Where do you see the catalyst coming from?
Well, we got a hint, Corey, in the March 7th press release when the company released the final drill results at Cervantes. The stock jumped on that news because the results clearly showed that this California Norte, California zone is really growing. So that is a hint that the market liked what they saw there and really kind of underscores the potential. There's also the potential, it's not being talked about a lot, but at Cervantes, there is the potential for a gold copper porphyry at depth. And they're not necessarily drilling for that yet, but they're getting geological hints that that could be there. So if they hit a porphyry there, this thing's really going to skyrocket. And then, of course, you have a Tombstone in Arizona. That's a project that is an open pit. They are drilling outside of where the resource is. They just announced they have identified a new target there, and that target could essentially double the footprint of mineralization there at Tombstone. The theme I have for Aztec, Corey, is this is a company that probably has a small mine already in place, and they could move to a medium-sized mine with continued drilling. I think that's the theme, that they're going to grow from a small mine to a medium-sized one. And doing that will, of course, affect the stock as well. I like this little company.
Okay, it is still an explorer here, right? But I guess balancing out Tombstone and the Cervantes projects, are you more partial to one over the other?
Well, they are different. One would be open pit, one would be underground. One has a copper porphyry, the other's more about expansion. So, the great thing about Aztec is Simon, the CEO, is very aggressive about going after these projects. They put out more news than probably any other company in our portfolio. They're very active. They're pushing forward. They're doing all the things they need to do to push these projects forward, until the day comes when the junior market turns around and people start reaching down into these smaller companies, and that will affect them. So I like their progress. Whether it's both projects, it doesn't matter to me because they're aggressively pushing both projects forward.
Let's move on to one final company then, but I will be having you back on the show in future segments talking about other companies within your portfolio. This is a royalty company, Vox Royalty. We've had them on the show as well. This is a smaller royalty company, but they continue to grow through cash flow as well as grow through acquisition, something that these royalty companies need to do. Take us through Vox Royalty. Why does this one stand out to you in the now larger world of royalty companies?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking that because there's a little story there behind it why we added Vox. We are looking at, okay, we need to add some royalty companies because you really have to have some in your portfolio, given the lower risk and that sort of thing. We looked around and we didn't want to recommend Franco-Nevada and Royal Gold and Wheaton because they essentially are the ETF, right? The royalty ETF. They make up a large portion of it. So we thought, well, if you're going to just buy them, you ought to just buy the ETF. So what can we do to grab a bigger gain than what the royalty ETF might do? The companies I named are all great, but we want outperformance. So we reached down not to the tiny juniors, but the companies that were established that had big growth on tap, moving them from a small royalty company to a medium or even large one. And Vox definitely fits that category. So they've been building a portfolio out that is very impressive and setting them up for the future. They've got a lot of assets in Australia at various stages, but when all this stuff starts kicking in, they're going to generate a lot of free cash flow. The great thing is that that stock is really cheap right now. So we've labeled Vox as a buy and hold or buy and tuck away type of stock for the bull market. We think that's what you can do with this, especially right now. But there's a lot happening with Vox. They just posted record earnings. They raised their dividend. They launched a dividend reinvestment plan. They've set up a share buyback program. And of course, you don't buy back your shares unless you think your company's undervalued. And it definitely is right now. The NAV is definitely higher. So they're doing a lot of things. And I really think this is a stock you can buy and literally just tuck it away, just put it in your portfolio, forget about it, and just ride the bull market with this company. I think the stock's going to go significantly higher before this is all over.
I do like seeing them take that big company approach, paying a dividend, buying back shares. But then on the flip side of that, what do you want to see in terms of growth? These royalty companies, they do have organic growth within their portfolio, but do you want to see them get aggressive on the acquisition front?
And they've been aggressive on the acquisition front. I mean, just look through their press releases over the past 12 months and you'll see they bought a huge royalty package in Australia for a nickel. I mean, they got it very cheaply. A month later, they announced another acquisition package in Australia. So they are diversified, but they do have a large percentage of their assets are in Australia. So they've been aggressive. A lot of this has yet to kick in terms of production and paying them a royalties. They've got a very bright future, in my opinion. But the team over there, Kyle, the CEO, they're aggressive. They're going to keep going. I really like them. They're young guns and they're aggressive, and they're going to build this company, I believe, much bigger through acquisitions. Yes, it's going to be fun to watch, I think.
So, Jeff, let's take a step back then, because we just covered a range of companies here, some advanced explorers, a more junior explorer, and a small royalty company. What's some of your criteria in a simplified way? And I know that might be hard to answer very simply, but how do you go about selecting stocks that you put in your portfolio and that you recommend to subscribers of the Gold Advisor?
Well, I did write a book, and I'm not trying to plug it, but I did write a book to answer that very question, Paydirt, how to hit Paydirt with mining stocks. And it goes through 6 criteria that I've personally used. It also has 17 other people weighing in. So there's literally over 100 quotes from other people in the industry, from the Rick Rules of the world all down to geologists you've never heard of. So it's very useful to try to answer that question. But it all starts with the 3 legs of the stool, right? And I'm sure your audience has heard that, but it's the people, the politics, and the property, in that order too, by the way. Because if, let's say, a project doesn't get what you hoped it would get, do you want someone who's had 6 major discoveries in his career and put 4 mines into production dealing with that? Or do you want a guy who ran a marijuana farm a year ago and he's trying to deal with that? Well, obviously you're going to pick the person who's not just experienced, but had successful experience. So you got to start with the top people. Even Rick Roll himself has said, hey, if I just stuck with the top top 10 people, I'd had less stress and made more money. So you really do want to start with that. And then the politics, that's second. That doesn't come before you look at the property itself. I've had people ask me about a drill result of some company I'm not familiar with. And the first thing I ask is, okay, well, who's behind it? Where is it? If it's some war-torn part of Africa, I'm sorry. I wish them luck, but I'm not investing my dollars there. Corey, I look at us as like this. We are venture capitalists. We are venture capitalists when you invest in the junior sector. So you have to look out for risk, just like a venture capitalist would, just like a hedge fund would. You have to look at your risk. And one way to reduce that risk is just to stick with pro-mining jurisdictions, with people that have had the strongest success in the industry. And then you look at the project. So in terms of the project, for me, it's real simple. It's got to be just like my grandma's chocolate chip cookies, big and rich. That's what you're looking for. So, or the potential to be big and rich, right? So that's a good starting point. That's kind of a starting point for me. I follow my own cooking here, so I practice what I preach.
Yeah, you make it sound so simple, Jeff, but really it is in a way, right? Follow the good teams and filter down from there. There are risks all over the place, especially when you're in these small cap stocks, but you need to be aware of that. And yeah, you do need to focus on the better teams out there. Before we wrap it up here, there is another Metals Investor Forum coming up on May 9th and 10th in Vancouver. I'll post a link so all of you can register if you want to attend that. Myth. What are some of the companies you're bringing to that conference, please, Jeff?
These companies are all in our paid newsletter that we just started in January. It's called Paydirt Prospector. It's named after the book. It's not expensive. You can check it out at thegoldadvisor.com if you want. So these companies that I invited are all in this newsletter. So here's some free picks, if you will. But we follow them all. One is Aero, AERO Energy. This is a Galen McNamara new uranium company, brand new. They'll be drilling up in the Athabasca this summer. Very exciting. The second is AMark Resources. This is a copper explorer that's got 3 projects. They're going to see $17 million of exploration and drilling this summer alone on those projects. So high potential there for a discovery, maybe. The next one is Austin Gold. I love it when I mention this name to people and ask about it, and they say, "Oh, I've never heard of that one." I love that. Nobody's heard of this company, but it's a gold explorer. They have a project in Oregon. The NIMBY there is almost non-existent, so that's okay. But the big potential there is a project they have in Nevada. Then we also have Pacific Empire Minerals. This is a copper explorer up in the BC. It's had a lot of history on a lot of drilling. And all of a sudden, one day, the geologist from Teck and the CEO of this company realized, oh my gosh, we've been drilling in the wrong direction. It's kind of like Indiana Jones and them finding out that the Germans were drilling in the wrong spot. Well, this is kind of the same thing. They're going to turn the drills around and drill a different direction. We have a diagram that shows that in our write-up. The last is Western Exploration. I really like Darcy, the CEO. Nevada project. They already have a resource over 1 million ounces. Based on the drilling they've done to date, they think they can actually double that resource, add like 1 million ounces to it. And you can see the map of how they could do that. They've already had some drilling there, but they just raised some money, got a big drill program coming up this summer. So those are companies I all like.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much for joining me on the show. As I said, I'm going to get you back on the show, and we're going to continue talking about different stocks in your portfolio and especially following up on recent news from some of those. So everyone be sure to tune back in when I have Jeff back on. And again, click on those links below to learn more about his newsletters and that upcoming Metals Investor Forum. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Corey. Thanks for having me. We'll do it again soon.